But a big name did emerge, but not on the defense, which is interesting because whenever you bring up free agency, people indicate, look, focus on the defense. But there is a list of offensive players that will be available that the Lions could look to upgrade. And I think most people realize, okay, the wide receivers are decent, but you could bring in competition at wide receiver three and some depth. Maybe you go out there and upgrade from Tim Patrick, but I do think that there's an opportunity for him to continue to work with the Detroit Lions. But you recognize that, okay, depth along the offensive line is key, but there is a big name potential free agent out there. What was your reaction when you start seeing guys like Trey Smith from the Chiefs, who I understand, look, man, he did not give up a sack. He's good against the run. You could do a lot of things with him. He was integral in the Chiefs, when they did have a solid run game. But I know people will say, well, look at the last game. He was pretty much, part of the reason that the offensive line struggled against a stout defensive line of the Eagles. But you got to also remember the context is the Chiefs didn't have really a solid run game. They were not able to establish the run, which makes the Chiefs one dimensional. So the Eagles have the upper hand in terms of scheming, and that's where you can get all this pressure because there was no real threat of no threat of an explosive running play. Whereas the Lions, I think, you add talent to the offensive line, there's an opportunity there, but the cost is going to be very prohibitive. I think in adding a Trey Smith, over $20 million per season is expected of him. The Lions didn't make the push for the big name Dolphins offensive linemen last year. They have offensive linemen that they want to maybe draft or develop as well on the roster. So, what was your reaction to potentially in your thoughts about maybe the Lions taking a big swing, maybe not on defensive line, but on the offensive line with Trey Smith?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Trey Smith is obviously a very good player. He's like a consensus top five, in some areas top two free agent when you look across the different media outlets that kind of have put together their rankings. And so Trey Smith, there's a lot to like about the potential fit because the Lions do have one of the best offensive lines in the league. And when you add a player like that, I don't think there's a conversation. I think you start talking about the fact that they are the best in the league. And unfortunately, I don't think that's an investment the Lions should necessarily feel like they have to make because at the end of the day, Graham Glasgow, yes, he took a step back in 2024, but the overall body of work with him suggests that in some way, shape, or form, he's going to contribute in a big way. And whether that's simply serving as a depth piece who can step up anytime somebody along the interior gets banged up and you can just throw a starting caliber talent in there like Graham Glasgow, then that's valuable in itself. The other thing you have to keep an eye on is Christian Mahogany, who in I think it was five total appearances, two starts on the offensive line, looked like he was ready to go. And obviously, you have your concerns about whether or not he can hold that up over a longer stretch in a period of time. Obviously, with only two starts, but at the end of the day, his physicality matches up, and he seemed ready for the moment when he got that start in the postseason against the Commanders. So he's one that with a full offseason, remember, he didn't get a chance to participate in training camp last year because he was out dealing with mono, and he was on the NFI list for the first handful of games in 2024 as a rookie. So I think with Mahogany, you have a guy talking about potential to be a high caliber contributor in 2025, simply based on the fact that he's going to get the full offseason. Assuming nothing goes wrong in terms of injuries, like this is a guy who's going to get a huge year of development in the offseason and then get a chance to go out and contribute in 2025. And then Kevin Zeitler, if Kevin Zeitler wants to come back, there's a short-term contract just waiting for him, in my opinion. I think he's a guy that the Lions should prioritize if he has the desire to come back. I know he's getting up there in years and he's been in the league for a long time, but at the end of the day, he was really good for the Lions last year. And yes, he missed a couple of games, but they were kind of isolated instances, and you didn't see any long stretches where he was absent from games due to injury. He's pretty durable. He's been durable throughout his career. And if he wants to run it back for another year or two, I think the Lions should definitely invest in that. So, yes, Trey Smith is a very good player, but I think the Lions should prioritize their internal options just based on the fact that they have what it takes to perform at a high level, and they've performed at a high level for the last several years up front. And I don't think that they necessarily need to go out and get a big name free agent. Would it be great? Yes. Do I think it's necessary? No, I do not.